Hello, this is the Family Retort with a little bit different today. We're going to do the drunk cast. Yay, because I've been drinking a bunch. My
And I did
cousin
not do my
has
homework.
has not, and she was like, I didn't do my homework for this week, so I was like, screw it, let's do an impromptu kind of fun one for today. So we are going to be talking about the worst communities online.
Which I'm sure Eric has heard of way more worse sentence than I have. So
Yes.
this will be a very interesting podcast. Well, okay, I think that anybody who has on the internet has an opinion on this, and it'll be interesting to see who hangs out where and what kind of exposure people have affects their experience of this.
Yeah, because I've been around on the internet for a very long time. I've perused Kiwi Farms, 4chan, Encyclopedia Dramatica, all those fun websites.
And the most that I have done is been on Tumblr and Twitter, which I'm sure
Oh,
has
Tumblr
is
is
a
just as
font.
bad.
Well, I haven't been on Tumblr in a long, long time, but I was definitely probably on Tumblr during the peak of it being messy.
I like how you put that. It being messy. That's a nice way of putting it. There is some pretty ridiculous stuff on Tumblr for a while.
Well, I think the thing is that I got burnt out on it.
Yeah, I can't imagine why.
Yeah. Uh, but I think for me, part of that being burnt out was like I had a friend group that was exactly like Tumblr.
Ooh.
Uh,
So like the you need to use my proper pronouns. They're
okay, hey, I have no problem.
whims, foo, fur, fee, fi, fo, fum.
So I actually have no problem people using their proper pronouns, even neopronouns or xer, or even people changing pronouns. That's not my
Oops.
problem. It was when people don't like talk to you about the problems they have with you and instead make up like social justice reasons. Like they said that I was culturally appropriating, etc., etc., when really it was that I hurt their feelings.
I
Um,
mean, so
by
here's
being
my
I was
solution
I was I
to
was
that
I was
bullshit.
saying something mean, but
Here's my solution to that bullshit. Just call them by their name. Just be like, how about I just call you by your name?
well, so I don't have a problem with pronouns. I am happy to adjust to I mess up cis people's pronouns, so I try to make that clear that it's like I think there's like a neurological thing where there's times where I've called like the lead female character of Bones like he when referencing it to somebody, so it's not on purpose, but that wasn't really the problem. It was something else.
All right.
Anyways,
I
so
do think Tumblr is a bad. Well, they pretty much died. I mean, Reddit's not isn't great in its own right. Redditors are not great. And I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of flack for that eventually. But yeah, whatever.
well, I think that the thing is that there's toxic forms in all communities, and I think that on Twitter that I'm on now, everybody's like, "Oh God, Twitter is just such a cesspool,"
I mean,
and
it
it
is.
really depends on how you use it, especially because there's just so many bots on there, especially during the 2020 election. So, which wants to go back to your topic.
Okay. Anyway, um, worst communities. I think I'll let you go first because mine is way worse.
Definitely,
Because I
definitely.
have examples of how they're as bad as they say they are. Um, so, what do you think is the worst community online?
Okay, fandom communities that I've been in that are unpleasant are the Steven Universe and Star Wars fandoms have been pretty notoriously unpleasant. Political communities that I've been around or a part of that are also toxic were the Kamala Harris and Bernie Sanders communities during the 2020 election. But I would personally say that the community I think is very toxic on the internet is the incel community, which is not on Twitter or on Tumblr, but is
Oh my
on
god.
Reddit. And that is
Yeah,
my
incels are pretty
opinion.
bad. I do agree with you on that. I would say they're more freaking hilarious. on just how ridiculous shit can get. Um, go on. I'm gonna pull something up in the background. So explain
No,
why you think
oh,
incels are so bad.
okay. So I think to me, incels are bad because they prey on very lonely people who are having a hard time and they decide to aim their hatred at a specific group of people and they bring them into further misery. The incel community is almost like a cult in that it isolates the people in that community because nobody really wants to hang out with an incel, right? Once you have that kind of methodology, you get
Go
further and
on.
further isolated. And it is harmful to the people outside of it because I think one of the mass shooters that I talked about in the last podcast was a part of the incel community and had like a whole manifesto about how women were this and that or blah blah blah. And I'm not saying all incels are mass shooters, but just that that type of methodology is toxic to the people around them, is extremely harmful, and it's not helpful for themselves. It doesn't actually make them better, and it's very sad to see. And it also, when you think about toxic parts of some fandoms, I think that there's a huge overlap with the incel community and who in those fandoms is spreading toxicity.
So
There's
here's a question for you. So since incels are involuntary celibates, do you think if they got some action, they would chill the fuck out?
no, it's pretty clear that they get worse,
They get worse? How do they get worse? Because then they're not an incel anymore.
but they still have that same ideology. Because the problem isn't, there's lots of perfectly decent people who just have never had pussy. There are lots of perfectly decent women who are like, man, why can't I have a good dude, right? There's a lot of women who also are
So
involuntary celibate and they do not have the same. Some of them actually do have extremely toxic ideology, but they don't have the same community toxicity and community reach and community
so
heaviness.
by extension, would you call um oh crap, what group would it be? Nice guys, incels. Are you familiar with like the nice guy trope?
I am, well, it really depends.
So you know what
I
I'm talking
have
about, like the
I know
oh
because I've
hey
been called
girl.
49 times in 3 days.
It's
So
just
it's
like,
just,
oh my gosh, you're being such a favorite, and then they immediately flip on you when you show zero interest or
well, so
are
the thing was, is there somebody I thought was a genuine friend of mine, and I, they just pulled the weirdest shit on me.
yeah, that's that kind of
And it's
community in
happened to
general.
me so many times that I am like mildly jaded. And now I open like every conversation with a man with, I'm asexual. And it's just, it's really, I mean, and then it still takes 3 months for them to get it. But,
Just like
you
I
know,
have no interest in you. I don't want to fuck you. Please stop trying to.
it's it's really hard because I have to alter my own behavior so much. Like I have, honestly, I am a person who deeply loves my friends, so it really hurt me when I thought these people were my friends and then they just, to realize they didn't really care about me as a person at all and they really just wanted to possess me as like an object. It was so painful to have invested like emotional energy in people. And so, but I have a lot of good guy friends who are like, hey, I understand that you are not attracted to me and I am letting you know that I'm attracted to you, so let's make these boundaries clear. And those are people that I immediately, like, I respect to no end. I have, anyways. So nice guys and incels, there is a very, they're like,
They're
I don't know, I
super like close
they're like
together, I feel
they're
like.
like a Venn diagram almost.
Crossing
You
one
know,
section with the other section, yeah.
there's like, they're like touching, they're like cousins, they're like sisters, they're almost the same thing sometimes, but not quite, pretty close. Because it's very easy to see a nice guy become an incel, but usually nice guys have enough. I don't think they have exactly the same ideology as incels. They They
So
genuinely,
I
I
oh
think,
I think you're a
I
little wrong on this. I think there is similar kind of ideologies at play, especially when it feels like their whole thing is you owe me something because. I don't know what the because is. I'm not an incel or
right.
nice guy. It's just you
Well,
owe me because I exist, because I'm being
that's
nice to you, or something
that's
along
true.
those lines. And
Well,
then
I mean, let's
it's
talk
just
about female incels, right? Who are like, I'm owed a good man because I preserved my chastity, right? There's a lot of people who are very bitter about that.
see, yeah,
Well,
I don't know that side very much
so
because
they don't go against men, but there are a lot of women who we call them pick-me's who like rail against women who are like, how
really,
come she has a good man? Because she's fat or she's such a slut. Why does she have a good man? Like, why does she have a good boyfriend? Blah blah blah. And
really,
it's really interesting to see. I've seen it online because I repel women like that, obviously.
I have not heard of this. This is new to me. So
Well,
please
I just thought
enlighten
it
me
would
on
be
this
fun
one.
to share that there's a much smaller flip side of the coin on the female spectrum of entitlement and how it gets whatever, but the violence is not the same. I think that is the
Got
big
it.
difference. Is when women are involuntarily celibate, they lash out at the women who they feel like are taking who they think they deserve, right?
So
They think they deserve a good man. But
I've
when
heard.
men
Oh, go on.
but when men are involuntarily celibate, they lash out at the women who are not choosing them.
Ah, I see what you're saying. So I've seen something, and let's see if you can oh my God, verify this. Yay, drinks. I'm still drinking too. I basically polished off half a bottle of Di Serrano, so good stuff. Um, have you heard of a phrase, and I know this isn't huge, called dead eggers?
I
So
have not.
what these people are, or we'll say women, what these women are, they party in their 20s, then in their 30s, they can't really find anybody because they're not at a good job. They're just kind of very vain or narcissistic. And then they get into their 40s, and, the period where they could have kids, they can't anymore. So they basically lash out at um, happy couples in their 20s or even 30s and basically yell at them and are just very bitter and angry people because they can't have a family, they can't have that kind of happy relationship anymore because
Well,
they've
I think it's
squandered those years.
well, I think what's really interesting is that it's my community or has like kind of dissected this type of phenomena. We call it the Karen, right? Of someone
Yeah,
who
it's
previously
kind of like a
had
Karen type mentality, but
of
just
someone who
without kids.
previously had a lot of privilege and who previously got a lot of access and benefits simply from their physical beauty or from their performance of certain beauty expectations, etc.
Yeah.
And they kind of, instead of improving themselves emotionally or career wise or enriching themselves with their friendships or whatever, they focus solely on what society tells them is their primary asset, which is their beauty, in very superficial ways.
And then it
And
fades and then
then
they get pissed off.
they have to deal with the cold hard truth of how everything really exists, right? It's honestly, this is my biggest fear, is becoming not pretty anymore, because then people will be mean to me and I don't like when people are mean to me,
Well,
because it's not about, like, I try to be a good person, right? But I also understand that the world is very harsh, and I've seen how people are just nicer to me. And some of that is just the privilege that I have by being a small white woman, and that is because I'm non-threatening. We have said that women must be protected, all this stuff. And when I fit into that stereotype, I am protected. My mom, who is 6 feet tall, gets literally attacked just for being 6 feet tall. And so I know that there are differences in how people are treated. And I'm
Yeah,
just so scared.
fair enough. I mean,
And so I think it's hard for women who have had prenatal privilege and not had to do any of the work to have to adjust to life that way. And they think
kind of
that
like
previously,
coasted through life up to that point, and then finally they've had to like either work or not everything gets handed to them on a silver platter, and they
I
just get
wouldn't even consider it being coasted. It's just that you were rewarded for the one thing. You were rewarded for, let's
oh,
say,
your
it's
looks.
like, let's say you built a skill, right? You built a skill, and then suddenly that skill doesn't apply anymore. And then, of course, you have no worth in society without your skill.
Okay, you can replace skill with tits, and that's perfectly okay.
So, but what I'm saying is that performing beauty
Yeah.
is a skill.
Yeah. Yeah, and
It's
then
not
they
just,
get
but I
pissed
want you to
off
understand that,
and lash out
yeah.
at people that are younger than them who do have, we'll say that, quote unquote, skill or better looking or a bigger bust size, whatever you want to say.
I don't know. You've seen very ugly people with big boobs. I know you have.
Well, yeah, but you don't generally look at their face. Well, this is from a guy perspective. I'm sorry, but you don't generally look at their face. You're just kind of like, well, this is what it is. But
Well, but that's not what fades as you age. It's
no,
all
I
the
know.
other stuff.
But I'm saying like I'm saying like the phrase "the dead egger" kind of thing is because they've essentially been stuff handed to them because of either their looks or whatever, and they chose not to have kids because they didn't want any because they were too busy partying or something like that, and then they just get bitter and resentful later on in life when they can't have
Where
any
is this
kids.
term from?
Uh, well, if you're familiar with Medicare, it comes from him. That's where I first heard it.
Interesting.
Uh, I won't get into his stuff because it is what it is. He's a good former streamer slash commentator.
This disclaimer makes me think I would not like him.
It depends. Anyway, I think the worst group online that I have seen is the furry community.
So
Um,
I would like you to elaborate, because from what I know of the furry community that I learned that it is a myth that they have sex in those fursuits because those fursuits are very expensive. And as an artist, I know that they pay the artist community very well. Like, if you were an artist who's not doing well, your best bet is doing furry commissions, because that's the only
gross.
people who actually pay.
Gross.
Money, okay? Money matters. And being a
Okay,
good
well, yeah,
client
I'm
who
sure people
actually pays
online
people.
pay for. Okay, hold on. I'm sure people will pay for child pornography online too. That doesn't make it right. Huh?
I mean, it's an image. It's like a cartoon. It's
Oh, it's
not
a
like they're
cartoon. Yeah,
cartoon
it's
children.
still child pornography. I don't care if they're.
Not furry porn.
I don't. Oh my god, it's just as bad. Look,
Is it?
yes, yes. Don't. Okay, there's a few
I mean,
reasons why they're
I
so
don't want you to
bad.
understand that all of it to me is equally disgusting.
Oh
That's the
yeah,
thing,
of
is I
course.
don't get, so no, but like, everybody's sexuality is equally disgusting to me. You with your wife is just as weird to me as the furry, okay? To me, all of you are super weird. Like, human beings are gross,
Oh my
disgusting
gosh.
beings.
Okay. Well, you're
It's
very
all
much in the minority
gross.
on this one. Let's throttle it
So
back.
to me, so
Oh my gosh.
I want to hear why they're gross, besides just their yucky is
Okay.
different from my yucky.
There's a few reasons. Many furries are legitimately child pedophiles.
And
So
this is do you have the like rates that show that they're higher than, say, the Lolita community of the anime fans?
Okay,
Because those guys have
Lolitas are
proven
just as bad. Look, I'm not defending the Lolita community because they're just as degenerates. I'm
Well, so
focusing on the furries.
what percent of the anime fan community are Lolita consumers versus the furry fan community that are actual pedophiles?
Oh, let me just pull that up. Enough. There's enough. Too many.
Enough.
One is too many. Let's put it that way.
Okay, I mean, the writer of Rurouni Kenshin had so much child porn they thought he was distributing, and he got a slap
Yeah.
on the fucking wrist.
Okay.
So
Look, when you call a quote unquote 2,000-year-old fill in the blank mage witch, dragon lord, whatever, and draw them as a 14-year-old girl, yeah, that's still fucked up,
oh
in my
god,
opinion.
they draw them even younger. It's so anyways.
I know.
But my point is just like, are the furries uniquely bad, or are they
Okay,
just as
hold
creepy as
on.
everybody, like all the other people on the
They're
internet?
uniquely
Because
as bad because they're familiar with the Zoo Sadist leak. There
no,
was okay. So there's a prominent
I don't
YouTube.
even know what a zoo sadist is, so I'm gonna need you to give
Okay,
me some exposition on that.
let me break it down. Zoo meaning, I don't know, zoo, whatever the fuck you want to put for there.
Zoo is for like the animals, right?
Sadist meaning torture.
Ugh.
Yeah. Zoo Sadist group. Okay. Animal torture group. These people, so there was a prominent YouTuber, which was, I think it was like Kirito the Wolf, right? That was his YouTube persona, his fur persona, his fucking disgusting persona, whatever you want to call it. So there was I think it was like a Discord group or something where chat logs got leaked online via Kiwi Farms, yeah. And it's one thing they're pretty proud about is essentially arresting a few people in this group, which this did end up in arrests.
And they got arrested for child porn.
There was child porn and abuse of animals, and we're talking
Legit, actual images of abusive animals.
yes. I don't want to get too much in the details because I don't want you to go throw up or anything, but some how should I put this without abuse of live animals resulting in their death sexually.
Gross. Why did you even tell me about this? You are truly a terrible person for informing that this existed. I could have lived my whole life without knowing.
I told you the worst community, furries. And then let's take a step back from the really, really disgusting stuff. So I'm going to leave it at that. There is tons of stuff out there. If anybody is curious.
So how big was this horrible Discord group, or was it just a specific chat?
No, it was pretty big. And they were all sharing images. They were all doing stuff. And it resulted in the arrest of, I think, like 4 people. One was actually so bad. This guy was in Cuba. It was like Snake Thing, or that was his username. It was so
I'm already
bad.
having shivers of how creeped out I am. Like, I'm getting the heebie-jeebies.
As you should. Because this was so bad. So this guy lived in Cuba, right? Technically, there is no animal abuse laws in Cuba. It was so bad that they had sanctioned protests, government sanctioned protests, which does not happen in Cuba, protesting this because different animal rights organizations in Cuba got wind of this because they basically leaked all this stuff to them and told them, like, hey, this person isn't being prosecuted. It resulted in the government actually making laws in place, which, again, we're talking Cuba here, socialist Cuba, and the dude got arrested and then disappeared. We don't know what happened to him. Whatever you want to call it. That could
Well, do you
be
mean disappeared like he escaped, or disappeared like he got secretly killed?
disappeared like he might be in prison, he might be secretly killed, and nobody ever heard from him again.
Oh, well, I sure hope it's the second.
But, I mean, he did some horrendous things to puppies
Ugh,
and then got off on it.
horrible.
Exactly.
Really
That's
horrible.
why I said they're the most degenerate. And then going to, let's talk about the Rainforest Convention.
Oh, no.
So
Okay.
this was a convention for furries. Um, oh boy. Um, the Internet Historian, if you like his videos on YouTube, he did a really good one of that. But essentially, these people came together and were like, "Oh, let's do a fun convention." Well, there was a drugs up the ass at this convention, like nitrous, like getting high off nitrous.
I
Uh,
don't know what that is.
it's just a form of getting high.
Okay.
You huff nitrous, and because it kills brain cells, you get a high off it.
I mean, drinking also kills brain cells, but all right. Continue on.
This is
Drugs at a convention, very spooky.
okay. Uh, they ended up. So this was at a hotel, right? This wasn't a very big convention. Apparently, there was furries running around in diapers, and then they threw used diapers on cars in the parking lot.
Oh, gross.
They also broke a toilet because they stuffed, I don't know, fucking something in the toilet, flooding an entire floor almost.
That sounds pretty disgusting, but
What else did
that
they do?
sounds like these people were drugged up, right?
Not all of them. No.
Okay.
So apparently there was oh gosh. Okay. So uh, I know you're kind of really super grossed up at this, but I just want to show how much degeneracy is in this community. I guess somebody was in the elevator and was trying to say, no, 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 it's not a big deal. These guys aren't that bad. And he walked out with jizz on his pants. So somebody had jacked off in the elevator next to him and then got it all over him.
Oh, gross.
So next time you say, oh no, furries aren't that bad, just think of these things.
Truly, I am traumatized.
Yeah. So, like,
Is this worse than other? This would never happen at, say, a concert, right? Where people do drugs.
none of the concerts I've been to, and I've
And
been
this would
to
not
quite a
happen.
bit.
And this is worse than what happens when they destroy and riot during like things like a sports tournament, right?
I mean,
You know, like where they burn cars and
all right, destruction of public property versus um, literally killing puppies. I don't know. Killing puppies seems to be pretty bad.
well, I'm saying like regards to this specific convention where they're doing just horrific kind of gross things. They're not killing puppies at this convention. This isn't the killing puppies convention.
I must have missed that. I
I
mean,
mean,
I still think it's worse. I mean, would you rather deal with I'm sorry, my car got destroyed. I have to go through insurance. Or, oh, there's literally shit filled diapers on top of my car. What the fuck?
Pretty gross. I
It's like a
feel
different
like it
level, though.
depends. It depends because there's like you just have to clean that off versus like a financial destruction of property.
I mean, true.
So I'm not excusing this behavior.
No,
Obviously, I don't
it's
think it's
horrible.
good.
It's
But I'm
disgusting.
just saying, like, is this behavior worse than all other horrific human behavior? Like,
Yes.
I had a friend who was molested in the subway. You know, is that this? I feel like that's the
But
same level as somebody
it,
jacking off on you in the elevator.
is that like one specific community though? I mean, is that like a subway community? I agree it's horrible, but I'm saying like this is groups online.
I see. So for you, it's just like the fact that there is enough reporting of this kind of behavior within a certain community.
And that's the stuff we found out about. Can you imagine how much stuff is either hidden or behind closed groups or like secret Discord or oh, in addition, there is people who got arrested for legitimate pedophilia for touching, doing inappropriate things to underage people in that Zoo Sadist leak.
I mean that whole community, the whole zoo sadist community sounds super horrible.
Yeah.
But is that a reflection of the entire furry community is my question.
Yes.
Because okay, so
I feel like okay, it might not be the whole community, but if you really look into it, a large percentage of that community. I mean, even like
so if an incel is a mass shooter, that reflects on the whole incel community, right?
to a point, yeah.
So when we have mass shooters that are a certain demographic, does that reflect on the whole community?
I think the whole community is a little fucked up, sure.
So if all mass so if a lot of mass shooters are a certain demographic,
I don't see how mass shooting equates to online groups right now
well,
in
I'm just
this
saying
discussion.
because when I talk about, oh, this community has this type of ideology which is harmful, and you're like, oh, there's just a couple freaks and weirdos in every community.
No.
And that's what you tell me when you talk about 4chan and all this other stuff, and you're like, oh, I like just laughing at these crazy people.
But yeah, I mean,
Like
I
they're
still like
just out
laughing at
there.
them. I feel like, okay, for the furry community, more. How should I explain this? It's not just like 1% of the community that's into this. Or, it's like, oh, this is just a fringe group. I feel like more of the community is into it than people realize.
So if it's like a higher than 1%, it's too much. Well, obvious for this kind of degeneracy, right?
Yeah.
But how high of a percentage of a community needs to be degenerate or violent or affecting other people for it to mean that the community itself is bad?
I don't know. Enough to where they, a bunch of them get arrested for killing puppies and jacking off to it, or
So
are pedophiles in furry suits. I mean, they're like, how should I explain this? They're using this group as a cover to do inappropriate things.
right, well, for example, I'm just trying to find out what we're defining, what's our definition, right? Because there's obviously like dogfighting communities, and this is not an online community, right? But there's dogfighting communities. So is it the
Yeah.
killing of puppies or the jacking off to it that's the worst part? Is it the sexual deviancy
Why
or the
can't it be
violence?
both? Both are horrible in their own right.
They are. They absolutely are. So when Andrew Tate has like a ton of girls that are underage locked up
Yeah, Andrew
in
Tate's
whatever,
horrible, and
and
he
everybody
preys
who
on
follows him is
incels.
horrible, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Right.
I
So
agree. I
that's the
mean, you
community.
can't. Andrew, oh my God, Andrew Tate's a piece of shit. He's just like, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. It's just like, fucking idiot. And I can't believe people actually fall for that advice too.
Well, that's because you are married, right? You have felt the warmth of a woman.
Well, I've been in the. I mean, I was single for a long time. You know, I get it. I used to be. I don't want to say a nice guy, but kind of like, oh, kind of pathetic. I'll say that. I used to be kind
I
of
don't think we
pathetic.
really teach people how to have good intergender friendships and communication sometimes.
Look,
I feel like we actually specifically isolate our genders and separate them in a
all
way
right,
that makes things harder.
hold on.
But
I'm going to give you a little story time from back when I was in high school. So this is ancient history at this point. I was so fucking clueless. It's not even funny.
is
So,
this about the one girl that you asked you out and you went
yes.
and took her
Hold on.
about
Let's
to
hold on. Let me tell the story. So for people, like I said, for people listening to this. So I was this is a little thing for me. I was clueless in high school, right? Everything just went above my head because I didn't frickin' realize what was going on. I couldn't pick up on the signals people were throwing down. But I was interested in this girl, and then so she was like, "Oh, hey, could you play Magic the Gathering? I would like to learn how to play." My dumbass went, "Oh, cool! I'm going to teach you how to play Magic." Right? So we were alone at a mall, and here I am teaching her how to play Magic. My dumbass didn't think it was a fucking date, which it obviously was. So I'm just like, oh yeah, blah 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 blah. This is how you do things, and she was just kind of like, oh okay.
So, but here's the thing is like that makes you like a Chad in my eyes, right? Like you're
Well,
so
I appreciate
oblivious
it.
that like a girl hits on you and you can't even tell. Like that is not nice guy behavior, like desperately humping some girl's leg.
Fair. You know what? Fair. I'll give you that. I appreciate the but like, it didn't dawn on me till years and years and years later when I was telling somebody. I was like, we were talking about this person, and he was just like, "Bro, she totally just fucking asked you on a date, and you're completely clueless." And I was like, "No." I was like, alone, together, at a mall, and your fucking dumbass is teaching her Magic the Gathering. You're like, you fucking nerd. What do you think? I was like, oh, you're right. I was like, I was being stupid, wasn't I? He's just like, yeah. He was like, he ended up going, actually, it's a good thing you didn't date her because of other reasons, but I'm not going to get into that. But I was like, yeah, that wasn't, I didn't really think about that, did I?
Well, probably better than what you did than what I did, which is when I had a feeling that somebody liked me, I would literally run away.
Just boom, boom.
No, somebody was trying to walk me in class, and I was like, "Oh, I think I hear the bell running by."
Oh, poor.
I
He's
was like,
probably an
"Oh God!"
incel now.
Oh God. Hopefully not. Most of the people who were into me moved on, and a lot of them are even married now. So obviously, I didn't traumatize them too much. I didn't know what to do because I knew they were gonna confess to me, and I didn't want to be mean. So I would just run away.
No, but like, I don't know. I was just completely clueless with that shit. So
Well,
I can't say anything.
anyways, back to toxic communities and pedophilia, obviously.
Yes, pedophiles are
The
toxic.
first. So okay, so it's about the percentage of pedophiles in a community
I
and
it's a I you know
that sort of.
I think any pedophile is bad. Period. Dot. End of discussion. I don't. All right. So I
Well,
don't
I think it's
think.
difficult because to me, there's so many different levels of pedophile. Like to me, a 4-year-old who creeps on 18-year-olds is also kind of a pet. Like, not technically a pedo, but if you're going after 16-year-olds, like that's still a child. That's super
Okay.
creepy. But then there's like prepubescent versus whatever, and we as a society think that it's normal for men to chase 18-year-olds, and that's super weird to me.
Yeah, it is a little weird. So here's something I heard a long time ago, and I kind of agree with it. So there's such a stigma around pedophilia that unfortunately, even if somebody is a self-identified, non-offending pedophile, they can't seek help because there's such a stigma around it. And I do feel like that should change, but I don't think normalizing pedophilia should be a thing. Where if you're, we'll say, a self identified or even a pedophile in general, you should be able to go to a psychiatrist or something and be able to seek help via those channels.
Well, there's not even any treatment for that, honestly.
And there should be, though. There should be
I
some
do think
sort
that
of help for them. And I think that it's such a,
there should be, because
yeah.
it I and I I really wish that we had more knowledge about what is going into that, because I also think that there is a lot of fear mongering about it. Not that I don't think pedophilia is bad, but the way that we react to it, obviously, is, oh, this person should die, right?
I mean, I
And
agree with that's okay. Offending
but
pedophiles, yes. I'm not talking about like, okay, somebody is 18 and 17, been boyfriend and girlfriend for 3 years and ended up having sex, and then their parents got pissed off, so reported it. Therefore, they
right.
went to jail. Like that. Okay, that's a little ridiculous.
There are some people who genuinely get off on the destruction of innocence, and we don't know how they turn out that way, and I wish there was science for that, and I wish there was treatment for whoever is like that. And or honestly, I don't understand. I think part of it, I don't understand why, if you have that type of disposition, why you don't just go into sadomasochism, where you can consensually torture somebody. I don't understand. Like there
Like
are avenues.
BDSM kind of
Yeah,
thing.
like if you really are a sadist and really need to torture somebody to get off, then
I don't.
there is an avenue for that to be consensual if you wanted to, but that's not really
I think
what.
it's the age thing too. I think some of it does play into the age, but again, it's like
There is a
I,
DDLG community where you dress up like a little girl. Like,
are
it's,
you talking about like what is it called? ABDL or something? Like adult baby
yes, something like
something
that.
something. I can't
Oh,
remember
it's Daddy
exactly.
Dom Little Girl.
Is that what it's called?
DDLG.
I think it.
Daddy Dom Little Girl.
Resume. Can you peek? Yeah.
So, I mean, that gives me the heebie-jeebies, but there is a avenue for that if that is something that somebody wants to explore. I don't know.
If they're into that.
It's
Again, I'm not a pedophile. I can't speak for these people. I don't know why they're into these things. It doesn't make sense to me. But
yeah.
I do think that there should be some sort of way of talking to somebody who can help you in a constructive way versus immediate like reporting or well, if you're an offender, I think you should be reported regardless.
Well,
I'm
I think
sorry.
there's also something to be said about how much our society normalizes generic abuse, and that we only have a level when there's a certain level of how bad it is, that we say, oh, this is where the line is, and it's very arbitrary. And I think that that is a huge problem. Um, I'm learning so much about horrible things on the internet. Thank you. Thank you, Eric.
Oh, I got just so much baggage of horrible things on the internet.
So this, to you, the furry community is the worst because of how pedophiles can hide within it, and
Yeah.
the high percentage of people who are into this abusive,
Yeah.
violent,
And
sadistic,
we'll say
creepy, perverted stuff.
zoo type sadist, and it attracts I don't know, a certain kind of degeneracy, and people in this community just kind of tend to go a little crazy.
And clearly nothing I've experienced could ever top knowing about those kinds of things. Jesus.
I mean, and you believe incels are the worst, which I'll grant you that they can be pretty bad in their own right in
I think
certain
incels are just a
situations.
much wider spread community than furries and even pedophiles. So there's a level of it's like a miasma of toxicity versus like a knife of toxicity.
Where it's just like a general, like a bigger scope.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I also
I
think that
think
my reason for labeling incels is because of I had just no idea about these crazy corners of the internet that you do. So I might
fair
grant
enough.
you that you win.
I don't think it's in this sort of thing. It's not really a competition because they're all horrible.
Ugh.
Um, but I think like incels are bad because it's not just a community. It's also people who aren't part of the community who you can say, well, you're an incel, and they won't know it if that makes sense. So there's
Well,
incels who don't self-identify as incels.
right, because they subscribe to some of the same ideology
Yeah, but they're subscribed to kind of that same ideology.
versus subscribing to an ideology versus the toxicity of actually harming things are just totally different realms of.
All right. Well, with
Well,
that, we hope you're having a great day. We will see you next time for what are we talking about? The Horus Heresy next time, hopefully.
I feel like we should give up on trying to make me read this book. I'll keep trying, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's more likely that I will read 5 other books by the time.
Oh goodness. All right. So we'll next week will be a surprise on what we talk about because we don't have a good schedule right now.
I mean, we could always talk about the feminist cyborg manifesto.
Oh yeah, cyber. Okay, we're talking about the Cyber Manifesto next time. All right. Peace out. Bye. I'm gonna have another
Thank you
drink.
guys.